It's the news of the day. The Movin'On Summit Program is now online. And here to share it with you, I'm delighted to welcome Sébastien Spangenberger, Managing Director of Movin'On, and Accenture's EMEA CEO, Jean-Marc Ollagnier, joining us remotely. Now, my first question is for you, Mr. Ollagnier. What are you hoping to achieve with this year's Movin'On Summit 2024?
Hello, Hayley. Our ambition is to be a catalyst to accelerate land transportation decarbonization. We really want to demonstrate Movin'On's impact in building actionable solutions in critical areas like carbon-free vehicles or circular economy. And we want to make very concrete recommendations to key stakeholders, European public authorities, COP29, to be further integrated into the Green Deal on global roadmaps.
Thank you. Now, welcome back, Sébastien. Thank you for being with us here today. Movin'On communities of interest will really be the heart of this year's summit. Can you maybe give us a bit more information about their role there and maybe how you'll be going about leveraging the deliverables?
Sure. Good afternoon, Hayley, and I'm glad to be back. I'm pretty excited about the way we will make the best from the tremendous work that all members and partners of Movin'On are currently engaged in. In fact, we will have 5 interactive sessions, which we will facilitate with a very inspiring methodology. We will project everyone into 2035. We will look back at 2024, and we will identify the key levers that we have implemented to make Europe successful in decarbonizing land transport. We will do this on 5 themes. First one, how did we ease within 10 years the selection of the most relevant energy according to the mobility need? And this will be based mostly on carbon impact labeling of goods. Second, how have we ensured, in fact, a fair mobility for all? Because whether you are in cities or in rural area, you need different means of transportation. So we will talk about innovative autonomous vehicles, lighter vehicles in this session. Third, how did we invent the eternal vehicle based on the generalization of smart parts, which are the base, of course, of a true circularity of materials? The fourth topic will be multimodality and intermodality. So how did we generate a seamless intermodality in freight transportation, mostly based on connected goods? And last but not least, on people, how did we, in fact, make multimodality really desirable for people based on a software-defined vehicle and a true governance of data at European level?
Wow, a lot to look forward to. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Movin'On CEOs will also be present at this summit.
Oh, they will, and they have to. So we will have 4 C-level panels, during which the 8 Movin'On executive member CEOs will share views with deputies, with new commissioners of the European Union, and also with representatives from the civil society. So one of those panels, for instance, will deal with all the means that will be necessary to make Europe competitive across the whole transformation. If we want Europe to be prosperous, we need to set in place the mechanism to generate the tremendous investment needed to foster innovation, to accelerate digitalization, and even to reskill and upskill the European workers. Another panel, for instance, will deal with the necessary changes that will have to happen to really make the mobility industry circular. So technology, regulation, even consumer behavior, many elements will have to evolve if we want the vehicles to last longer, if we want also those vehicles to be fully repairable, reusable, recyclable.
A lot of informative and insightful panels in perspective. Thank you very much, Sébastien. Now turning back to you, Mr. Ollagnier. For Accenture, what does it mean to be part of Movin'On?
Accenture joined forces with Movin'On in 2017 because we believe that no single player can meet global challenges like climate change on its social and economic impact alone. We are very convinced that businesses have the means to drive change if they collaborate across the ecosystem. For instance, at Accenture, we are putting technology and human ingenuity at the center of our sustainability services solution. But we need cooperation with an ecosystem of innovators, the public sector, NGOs, civil society, to implement sustainable mobility solutions. As I said, our goal is very ambitious: to collaboratively design and recommend sustainable solutions that are crucial to achieve Europe's Fit for 55 targets.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ollagnier, for sharing your vision with us. And we'll be back right just after the break with the next sequence. Right now, we'll be discussing two panels that will be taking place during the Movin'On Summit on the 7th of November in Brussels on energy transition and circular economy. Now, here to tell us more, I'm delighted to welcome Marie-Georges, Managing Director of Sustainability Services Lead for France and Benelux at Accenture, and Nicolas Marescaux, Deputy Director, Member Needs, Responses and Innovation at MACIF. Well, thank you for being with us here today. Now, my first question is for you, Marie. Now, I just spoke to your CEO, Jean-Marc Ollagnier, who will be taking part in the energy transition panel with ENGIE. Why did you decide on this topic?
Because, Hayley, energy transition is at the heart of the fight against climate change. And without this massive move to renewable energy, there is no sustainable mobility possible. There is no electric car, there are no hydrogen trucks. We need the technology to be able to build the platforms that will allow us to connect the different players of the value chain, from the energy production to the energy transportation to the automotive, the rail, the maritime players, to the final consumers. So we need the technology to be able to simulate, to be able to anticipate, to predict, and again, to bring this at scale. And this is what we will discuss with ENGIE during this panel.
It's definitely a panel not to be missed at the Movin'On Summit. Now, the same question is for you, Nicolas, because, of course, the CEO of MACIF, Jean-Philippe Dogneton, will be taking part in the circular economy panel this time, alongside the CEO of Michelin, Florent Manegot. How is the panel relevant to your company's activities?
Do you know how many cars are damaged every year in France?
Absolutely no idea.
A lot.
A lot. Depends who's driving.
6.3 million cars are damaged each year. And each car repair emits 375 kilograms of CO2. So how can we, rather than discard these parts, can we repair, reuse, recycle? How to solve this wicked problem? A single actor such as MACIF can do it. We need collaboration across industries, across sectors. Enters Movin'On. Because together with Michelin, Solvay, Accenture, ENGIE, together we can solve towards 2035 this topic, and to reconcile purchasing power and sustainable mobility.
Okay, makes sense. But what about the challenges Movin'On and your company will face between now until 2035?
I think that the main challenge is around the visibility and the roadmap. How can we do it? How can we anticipate? How can we collaborate in order to deliver on a credible set of actions in order to really make the change? Transition to renewables is really an infrastructure play. It's something that we are building today for the long run. This is not something that requires a 1 year or a 2 year plan. This is something that requires a 20-year plan because it's a lot of investment, it's a lot of change that all the economic actors have to undertake.
So this is a real investment over the long term.
Absolutely.
And the same question to you, Nicolas, but more specifically at a European level.
Yeah, last week I was at the grocery store. Unfortunately, when I pulled out of the parking lot, my wheel touched a pole and the wheel rim was damaged. And as too often, it was replaced instead of repaired. Thus, there was much energy used to produce aluminum, much environmental damage to extract bauxite. But however, tomorrow we can recycle it or repair it. However, you've got other practices such as gigacasting, using a single block to build pieces, but this can't be repaired. Thus, Europe should create some disincentives to avoid these malpractices, incentive for businesses to produce more durable, more sustainable and reusable parts. But it's not only a business side topic, it's also a society and about people, citizens. And how can Europe help educate, inform them? So as for materials, tomorrow, if I have to repair or reuse or recycle, I know what to do.
So it's all about changing the European mindset as well as certain policies encouraging people and companies to recycle. Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you, Nicolas. We'll be moving on to the road to 2035 to discover together a concrete initiative to decarbonise land transport in Europe. Now let's turn our attention to Road to 2035, which explores the work of the Movin'On communities of interest, and for which I'm delighted to welcome Maxime Sellier, EMEA Commercial Director of Solvay, who's working towards 2035 to build European multimodal green corridors. Welcome, Maxime.
Good afternoon, Hayley. Pleasure to be there with you.
Well, pleasure that you're here with us today. Now, I've got a few questions for you, Maxime, but first, I'd just like you to watch this short explainer video, which will give us some background information on this subject.
Europe is facing a major challenge: to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the transport sector by 55% by 2030 and by 90% come 2050. Fossil fuels currently account for 94% of transport in Europe. Of course, heavy goods vehicles will be moving towards electricity, hydrogen and biofuels. But at the same time, intermodality, which combines modes of transport such as rail, inland waterways and maritime transportation, will make a very significant contribution to the challenge of decarbonizing land transport in Europe. Movin'On is testing and working on the effectiveness of multimodal green corridors in Europe through 3 modal shift initiatives out in the field. The first initiative is designed to learn from opportunities offered by cabotage to promote local and responsible transport, with the transfer of road traffic to maritime transportation between the Michelin plants in Brassens and Cholet. The second initiative to learn about the challenges of multiplayer flows with a link from Sicily to Antwerp, bringing together electric heavy goods vehicles, boats, trains and barges for a 100% carbon-free sea-land modal shift. The third initiative to learn about the success factors for modal shift of massive flows between major groups, in the specific case of Solvay products, linking Libourne to Vitoria and Valladolid. So how do we speed things up?
That was a great explainer video. Now, Maxime, you're from Solvay. Can you tell us how accelerating our modal shifts and massifying European green corridors is crucial for decarbonisation strategies and the fight against climate change?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to do so. So let's take 2 practical examples: goods transportation and people transportation. If you assume goods transportation, take 1 ton of product that is currently being transported by truck, road transportation, and you move that over to rail. Doing that shift will save you 75% on CO2 emissions. So that's for goods transportation. Let's take now people, passengers. It's a bit more complex depending on the baseline. So what is the current mode of transportation? Are they flying? Are they driving? Or carpooling? But if you assume any of these three and going now to rail, that's going to be anywhere between 50 and 90% CO2 reduction.
Now, as pioneers of modal shift and decarbonised transport, the Movin'On community of interest is going to carry out very concrete tests in the field to anticipate blocking points and transform them into opportunities for action with a view to achieving the 2035 objectives. Do you already have any learnings from the field?
Yes, we do. It's still early days. As you saw in the video, we've got 3 specific cases ongoing right now, and it's early days. However, I can share 3 specific insights already. The first one, we're finding out that whatever shift to multimodality you're considering, that will require some sort of investment and significant changes. Those require strong decision and therefore data to make the decisions. And the first finding we have is that we are typically missing databases which are either not available or not so reliable. So availability to data is one first point. Second one is simply that the availability of multimodal solutions is lacking. It takes us a lot of time to try to identify options, and this may be linked to the lack of infrastructure, the lack of investments by transportation companies, or maybe just the lack of communication from those companies. But again, the offer seems lacking for us right now. The third and probably most insightful learning at this stage is the side benefit of going to multimodality for resilience, making your own supply chain more reliable.
Thank you very much, Maxime, for those clarifications and, of course, for this immersion in 2035, which we hope will have inspired you. And see you, of course, at the Movin'On Summit for more. Well, this second episode of Movin'On News is drawing to an end, but there's one piece of information you must not forget, and it is, of course, the Movin'On Summit Program. You can find all the program details online at movin'onconnect.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you very soon. Goodbye.